Take a look at this number, 250 million. That's not the population of a country, that's the number of competitors in what is, without a doubt, the most epic race in all of nature. The stakes? Well, they couldn't be higher. We're talking about everything. And the prize? It's life itself. And you know the crazy part? In this race, there can only be one winner. And no, we're not talking about some massive marathon or the Olympics. We're talking about the very, very beginning of our story, your story. This is it, the moment of conception, that instant when one single, incredibly determined sperm makes it through, penetrates an egg, and kicks off one of the most incredible journeys you can possibly imagine. So how in the world does that happen? How do we get from that one single moment to, well, to us? That's what we're going to dive into. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down that entire miraculous 9-month journey. We're going to watch, week by week, how a single cell transforms into a fully formed, completely unique human being. Right, so in that exact moment of conception, something truly extraordinary happens. A brand new, completely unique genetic blueprint is created. It's literally the code for a new individual who has never, ever existed before. And it doesn't waste any time. Almost immediately, we're talking within 24 hours, that fertilized egg starts to divide. It goes from 1 cell to 2, 2 to 4, and just keeps going, doubling at this incredible exponential pace. And honestly, the sheer speed of this first stage, it's just mind-boggling. I mean, by day 5, you've got a ball of over 100 cells called a blastocyst, and they're already starting to get their job assignments. Then, by week 4, the amniotic sac is forming. You can think of it as the baby's own private protective ocean for the next 8 months. And then, week 5. This is when something happens that just feels like a miracle. A heartbeat. It's tiny, it's super rapid, but it's there. It's unmistakable. And get this, by week 8, incredibly, every single major organ is already present. All of them. Okay, so with that absolutely explosive start, we are officially in the first trimester. Now, while all this frantic building is happening inside, it's often the most challenging time for the mother, for sure. But on the inside, this is the critical architectural phase. This is where the foundational blueprint for a human being is being laid down with just breathtaking precision. And that transition at week 8, it's a really big deal. It's a major milestone. Because with all those major organs in place, the developing life isn't called an embryo anymore. Now it's officially known as a fetus. That word, by the way, comes from the Latin word for offspring. So to give you a sense of scale here, at this huge milestone, the fetus is only about the size of a raspberry. A raspberry. And it's already making these little spontaneous movements, twisting and turning, even though they're way, way too small for the mother to feel anything yet. Flash forward just 5 weeks later by the end of the first trimester, and it's already grown to the size of a lime. You can see the face is distinctly human, the vocal cords are forming, and this is so important, the most perilous phase is over. The risk of miscarriage drops dramatically from this point on. All right, welcome to the second trimester. This is what people often call the golden period of pregnancy. That initial exhaustion and nausea from the first trimester usually starts to fade, and this is where development just hits the accelerator. The fetus starts to connect with the world around it in a totally new way. You know, one of the most profound moments for any parent happens right around now, somewhere between week 18 and 20. It's when the first movements can actually be felt. These first little taps, people often describe them as feeling like butterfly flutters. They're called quickening. And that is the moment the pregnancy becomes tangibly, undeniably real. And it's not just about movement either. The senses are coming online one by one, creating this rich inner world. The facial muscles are practicing expressions like squinting and frowning. Hearing develops, which lets the fetus learn the rhythm and the sound of its mother's voice. And studies actually show it recognizes and is soothed by that voice after birth. Even the taste buds are working, sampling flavors from the mother's diet that get into the amniotic fluid. This is wild. It can actually shape food preferences before the baby ever takes its first bite. So now we're at week 20, we're halfway through the journey, and the fetus is about the size of a banana. This is also usually when the big, detailed anatomy scan happens, which gives doctors and parents this remarkable window to check in on the development of all those organs that we saw form way back in the first few weeks. And all of this development brings us to a really critical question. As all these systems come online, at what point does a fetus actually have a chance of surviving if it's born prematurely?
The answer to that question is 24 weeks. 24 weeks is considered the milestone of viability. It's because the lungs are developing the crucial little air sacs they need to breathe oxygen, making survival, with a lot of intensive medical care, a real possibility.
But we have to be clear, it's a fragile chance. The survival rate is somewhere around 50 to 70%, and that's even with the most advanced neonatal care we have. So the key takeaway here is just how critical time is. Every single day spent in the womb from this point forward dramatically improves the odds of a healthy outcome.
Okay, so by the end of the second trimester, the fetus is now weighing in at about 2 pounds and is the size of a head of cauliflower. The brain development is just exploding, creating trillions of connections, and the fetus might even be experiencing REM sleep, which suggests it could be dreaming. And just like that, we're entering the final stretch, the third trimester. This whole period is really about one thing: maturation. It's all about gaining weight, practicing those breathing movements, and getting all systems ready for the massive transition to life on the outside. Now, as the fetus starts to run out of room in there, those little butterfly flutters are long gone. The movements totally change. They go from these acrobatic kicks and somersaults to powerful, deliberate stretches and rolls. I mean, you can often actually see a tiny foot or an elbow pushing against the belly from the outside, a very clear sign of the little person getting ready in there. And the weight gain in this stage is just incredible. At week 32, the fetus weighs around 4 pounds. Just a month later, at week 36, it's the size of a honeydew melon. And by the time we hit the due date at week 40, it's grown to the size of a small watermelon. Think about that. It's gaining about half a pound each week in these final stages. And this right here, this is the moment everyone has been waiting for. At 37 weeks, the baby is officially considered full term. That means the lungs are fully mature, they're coated with a substance called surfactant, which will keep them from collapsing, and they are ready to take that first monumental breath of air. From this day on, it's game time. Labor could begin at any time. So let's just pause for a second and really think about this transformation. We've watched this journey from a single microscopic cell all the way to a fully developed human, made up of trillions of specialized cells, all ready to enter the world. But here's a fun fact that shows you just how much mystery is still involved. For all of our science, for all our calculations, only about 5% of babies are actually born on their due date. 5%. The vast majority show up a little earlier or a little later. What exactly flips the switch and triggers labor? Well, that's still one of nature's best-kept secrets. And so, after that 40-week journey, this is the result: an average weight of 7.5 pounds, a complete tiny person, built entirely from scratch, from total silence to that very first cry. You know, it's the most extraordinary journey in all of nature, and it's happening millions of times a day, all around us. When you really trace it, from that one single cell to a fully formed person with a unique personality and all their potential, it kind of leaves you with one final question to think about. What could possibly be more miraculous than that?